What's a video game? No, so that sounds like a stupid question, right? Everybody knows what a video game is. It's what? What? So there's an executive at some video game company. I forget his name or what company, but he was just like, oh, they're just time wasters as you stand in line at the bank. Of course, you're at the bank, big executive boy. But no, I think they're more than that, clearly. But for some people, like there's mechanics heavy games. Like I play Threes still. Threes is about I don't know when I'm killing time and I like the movement on the screen. I don't know, man, get off my case. But then like a lot of people grew up with Nintendo games. I didn't play any Nintendo games. I played next to zero Nintendo games. It wasn't what I played. I had an Amiga. We played Commodore 64 or in the Commodore 64 before that, and Timex Sinclair, and like I was in computer stuff, not into consoles. And so I would just go over to Eric's house and play, different Nintendo games. So to me, those are different. I don't like platformers in general because I missed all of that. And so it's just not in my reference, right? I like shooters. Man, when Doom came out, actually, when Spear of Destiny came out, I think is the first time I'm like, I gotta buy a computer and excuse it and say it's for work because I want it at home. I want to play Spear of Destiny, which was like the Doom precursor. And then we played Doom, and like those have always kind of been my way of like what I play the most, right? But then like games came out like Dear Esther. Dear Esther all of a sudden was like, whoa, wait a minute. You're not shooting things. Not shooting anything. Probably a lot of things in the world deserve to be shot, but you're not shooting anything in that world. So then, what is a video game? Right? So then we started seeing a lot of story. I mean, obviously, like I work at a company and I've told a lot of story, but like look at like Portal. Portal is really about a little bit of story, a puzzle, a little bit of story, right? And you leave him alone. Like I know in co-op for Portal 2, I think there's only one time there's talk in the middle of a puzzle. And we had a big discussion about this because I was not like, we did this in Portal 1, but not in Portal 2. We're in Left 4 Dead. The original Left 4 Dead didn't have a lot of, they had some reaction one-offs to things in the world, but they didn't have conversations about things in the world. And the first conversation that I wrote was about Nick and Ellis talking about horses because that was an early thing in the map and we were just trying it out. Now, some people didn't like it. No, I know other games did this. This is me. This is what I mean, my process, right? And so, as I think about video games, is like, what are the things like? There's still challenge. I've joked that I've played Tom Clancy Wildlands a couple times before I realized that you were actually fighting Mexicans in Bolivia. Why? It's confusing. Honestly, it still never really justified it. But like some games, you don't need the story, but there's a story there because it gives you some context. And so then I think of something like Psychonauts, where Psychonauts is a lot of story around pretty simple gameplay, but good gameplay, and the gameplay ties in, right? There's a cohesiveness to that. I'm not going to use big fancy words. I know Clint will get mad at me for not using his words. But that's kind of like one of the ways to go, right? And so then I think of like, and I think Psychonauts is if you remove the story, do you like the gameplay? Does the gameplay hold up? So that's like kind of the thing that I'm wrestling with now. Is I've jokingly called it what I'm working on Psychonauts with guns. I know Psychonauts had guns, but you know what I'm saying. Like it is a different version of that. But it's also like when I talked about it on YouTube, somebody said, "Oh, it's this. You're making this game." I'm like, "No, I'm not." And I think I'm trying to be mean, but we often gameplay wise we throw it in this genre, but then we say like, "Hey." So, hey, Taylor Swift's making a Metallica song. No, she's not. She's just using guitars. Like, we should have this depth of what the conversation's about and the type of things that are about. And that's not about mechanics. Like, sometimes it is about mechanics, right? Like, I'd even say, like, something like Stardew Valley, where you have the mechanics is what hooks you, and then there's a story and everything else, and that gets you into the world. And somebody else can make a version of that is a different world and a different story, and that should be interesting to people, right? And sometimes it's that weird thing of, like, how's this for a tangent? I'm watching The Bear. I'm trying not to watch politics at all. I haven't watched a TV show in a while. So this is the third season. I'd already watched season 1 and 2. And like they just made everything arch. Like instead of making more of that, they made everything like heightened of that, right? By the way, season 3 is a Moby video from the 90s with people yelling at each other. You can't get me off that. That's the description of it. But like, so what is a game then? What is a game to you? Is it about the mechanics? Is it about the story? Is it about all of those tied together? I think you have to kind of tie them together. Like, that's what makes this so hard. Because you can make a movie, and you can make a movie that's got a little bit of a boring scene because you want to set something up, and people will be like, All right, well, this will pass in like 5 seconds. We're in a video game. You're like, I gotta do this, right? And so, like some of those story kind of heavy games with puzzles in them recently, I'm like, I gotta go look up how to solve this puzzle. I don't understand this. This isn't fun. Where if it was just you could do it, I think is less problematic than if you struggle with it. I think. I don't know. So how do people think about video games? Like there's esports too, right? Like there's a whole bunch. It's a whole big variety. And so when you say video games, and like that executive saying they're just time wasters, it's like, man, you don't have the full picture of video games. Like I play socially every week with friends. There's friends who I only know from playing socially who I really like and care about. And if something happened to them, I would be, upset. And I only know them from playing with them. Phrasing. But you know what I'm saying? Like we play games together every week or almost every week. And so I'm a big fan of like when we talk about like third places for people and all of that, that I think the older generation, my generation, ignores video games and ignores the social component because sometimes online isn't the same as, all right. But so with that, is there any video games you don't play? Like if are you not going to play an RTS? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to play a MOBA. MOBAs always make me angry. I don't know. Like, what are the things that you like? Like a first person shooter. I'm making a third person thing. A first person shooter or third person because Tom Clancy Wildlands is third person. Like that's my thing, non-platformy. I like to shoot things in the head. I'm a bad person. I don't know. So I'm kind of curious about how you think about video games. Oh, that means let me know. Oh, and like and subscribe.